Okay. All right. So I think last time we ended. Well, we'll pick back up where we ended. We were talking about the blind guy. They're like keep asking him. He basically smacks him around, right? Says, "Oh, you want to be his disciple too?" And they're like, "Oh, we're Moses' disciple, but you're that man or that sinner's disciple." And and it's that we've talked about how it was picking of law versus grace, and then we went into what the guy said about the 4-part sermon. You know,
Yeah.
uh, God doesn't hear sinners. Um, if anyone is God fearing, does His will, He hears him. Since the beginning of time, never heard anyone open the eyes of the person born blind. And number 4, if this man were not of God, he could do nothing. So he gives them a 4-part, and they couldn't do anything with anything because all good points, all valid points. And they said, "You were born entirely in sins, and you are teaching us. What qualifies you?" Kind of what we were talking about earlier about and that's something. If you're listening to this, we're going to be hopefully doing a video about, in response to a video that's kind of making its rounds, I guess, about people who are qualified and who's not qualified to teach. So,
That'll be good.
yeah, that's an interesting topic. And we can kind of hit it here that what qualifies a person to teach spiritual truth? That's a great question. Just like this guy, he was not qualified by those people that were listening to it. He was not qualified. They didn't say
Well,
anything about what he said, though.
and look at labels. Labels
Mm-hmm.
always play a huge role in qualification.
Mm-hmm.
And according to this text, he is labeled a sinner.
Mm-hmm.
He's labeled that person that God doesn't talk to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you're like, how big of a role do labels actually play
Mm-hmm.
in authority,
Right.
in uh, presuming who's who can and who can't? And labels, man. I mean, look, Jesus chooses labeled people,
Yeah.
but the people that he chooses that are labeled tax collector, a freaking fisherman,
Yeah.
which is dropout 101. You've got, I mean, the zealots. You've got the list of, so the debunking of the label thing has been a chore
Right.
of mine for years. But it is that is a I think the label plays a big role
Anytime,
in that.
anytime somebody, I don't care how long you've been a believer. I don't care how much you've studied. But if you're speaking truth,
Hmm.
okay, and somebody bypasses what you said and goes for you, that truth is truth no matter who says
That's right.
it. Okay, and if somebody says truth, I don't care if they're 5, I don't care if they're 50. Truth is truth. And these guys,
Yeah.
they bypass. They don't even address what he says. They just go right by it and say you're a sinner. They classified Jesus as a sinner, and then they classified this guy in the same category because this guy is he does things on the Sabbath, therefore he's a sinner. It's almost like horrible. There's no logic in their reasoning. Okay, okay. They hold the Sabbath all powerful. Mistake number one. All right. And then they standardize everybody else by that wrong standard.
Yeah.
And that's how they classify Jesus as a sinner because of a wrong standard.
Does
Then
that sound familiar today?
I'm probably gonna sound like I'm going after it, but I'm really not. I'm talking about the story. I'm talking about the account
Yeah.
here. So they classify by the wrong standard. Therefore, Jesus can't get out of it by their estimation. And anybody that believes in Jesus or follows after him or defends him is classified in the same classification as sinner. Therefore, they are not listened to. Instead of saying,
And
hmm?
no, 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 no. And I'm just gonna say, like, we can use the word camp. We've used that word.
Mm-hmm.
He's in this camp. He's in that camp. She's in that camp. And
Right.
again, I think it goes back to something I remember a long time ago, man, with old crazy Josh McDowell. I remember him. We were having these conversations about label. I think we were doing a podcast 15 years ago before
Yeah.
nobody knew podcast then. And I remember we were talking about Jonathan Finney's black metal band. Remember Jason White's cousin,
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Finney,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he was in the band, and I remember we were having this conversation about his just me and Jason went and watched a practice, and it's like, dude, the lead singer's dead now, but like he looked like a dude from Metallica. I can't remember his name, but anyway, the lead singer for Metallica, and like it was like, holy cow, this is out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But the whole conversation was about the whole conversation was about what Jonathan was doing as a new believer within that band.
Mm-hmm.
Within, like, I mean, I keep throwing names up about guys that have been saved, radically changed, and are still in their camp. They're still labeled as whatever they are, and they're speaking truth into that now. And again, I think like you look at the story, and you look at what surrounds the story. Jesus has already had the death sentence in John 6:66,
Mm-hmm.
with the bread of life, eat
Mm-hmm.
my flesh, drink my blood. The people have already turned away. They're already looking at him like, man, he's crazy. And then it's like nestled in this almost end of the way John writes it is this story of the blind man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the nail in the coffin for actually for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that, like you said, it's almost the camp that Jesus was creating was outcasts. It was the people that were labeled unsuccessful. It was the people that were labeled by the religious crowd. We can't hang out with you because you're this, because
Right.
and that seems to be the camp that Jesus draws from and uses and
Right.
changes the world.
Right.
And that's why the religious crowd, and it I don't know how to put it in terms of modern day without pissing somebody off, but I don't think we have to. I think it's a pretty open shut case
Yeah. Yeah.
of what we're looking at,
Yeah.
what we're saying.
I think pissing people off is our superpower. I think.
And
I think.
yeah,
it, it's not like we're trying to. It's just that
hmm,
we just dumb enough to point out the obvious, and I struggle with it just like everybody else. If you show up looking a certain way, if you show up
yeah,
with a collar, you know, looking like a priest from the Catholics or some other religion that wears the collar, you know, the priestly collar of our day,
yeah,
not from the priests of the Old Testament. But if you show up, it's hard for me to listen to you. It's hard. Okay?
yeah,
Okay, it doesn't mean that you may be speaking truth, right? So I have to listen to the truth you're speaking, because sometimes, people that I don't agree with theologically on some points, they have some there is some nuggets of truth in there somewhere, right? Now, does that mean that I need to follow it? No. You need to weigh it against, you know, weigh it against Jesus, weigh it against the the scriptures, but but you sometimes God may bring a message to you through an avenue that that offends you. All right, so he may be trying to wake you up from something. Um, so
So do you think that this the way John is writing this, do you think it's a last draw for the religious crowd that it seems like
it,
Jesus has been after?
it's getting close because we're only a couple of chapters away from Lazarus, which is the
Yeah,
final.
yeah. It's the
That's the
final miracle that
that's the final.
seals it.
Well, it's the final straw for them. They're like, if we don't do something, there's not going to be anybody else following us. Okay, again,
Yeah,
we're at the wrong standard. People following you is not the standard for whether or not you're following Jesus. you know. Uh,
yeah.
Good night. How many times do we discount people that are really speaking truth because they don't show up in the forum, or they don't show up with the pedigree we think they ought to have? Jeez. And I'm not saying I'm better at it. That's not. I'm not sitting here saying, well, I can listen to truth from anybody. No, I have to make a conscious effort to pay attention to what people are saying, and not so much who they look like or what they look like. Um, to let God speak through whoever He wants to speak through.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it reminds me of that story of the prophet that's riding the donkey and that's going in the wrong direction, and the donkey's trying to, it sees the angel, and the angel, the guy don't see the angel, and he starts beating the donkey, and then the donkey starts talking to him, and the guy don't even blink. He's not like, what, a talking donkey, like Shrek, a talking donkey, you know. you know no, he doesn't even blink. He's so focused on what he's focused on, he can't even realize the miracle of a talking donkey. you know um, but God will use anything to communicate. We just got to be have open ears, open spirits, right? And there
yeah,
this crowd, even though we give them a hard time, I think I identify with them in ways that I don't like. You know, uh,
yeah.
I think I see myself a lot in these people that are giving the formerly blind guy a hard time. Um, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
I hate
yeah.
admitting that. That's terrible because I'm a pretty awesome guy, and I don't want people to think I'm not awesome.
Well, and again, you go back, you go back and you go back and you wrestle with the again like that label is society's way of putting people in a safe place so that when we encounter like when we encounter that group, that camp of people, we know how to respond because
Mm,
we think, well, they're in this group, that means that they're all going to be just like this. They're in this group, that means they're all, and so
right.
we already have a predisposed way of dealing because it's safety for us.
Yeah.
Like think about what they're really fighting for. Like what are they really what's this religious crowd really what are they trying to protect?
Well, there, if they admit, if this guy's sermon makes them go and wakes them up, then they have to admit that their focus on the Sabbath could be wrong.
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, which was the crux of their salvation, their justification, and why they were loved by God, loved by the Father, um directed by the Father, why you should listen to me, right?
authority. So it kind of gave
Yeah,
them their authority.
I mean that's huge, right? I mean, I I don't know that I would do any better in their position if that much was riding on if that much was riding on this incident. Man, I would probably run down the same road theoretically.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what we're saying, that we are like them. I'm thinking there's a system they're protecting.
Yes.
Like there's a system they're comfortable with. There's a system that they believe is reaching the world, which even that just sounds horrible because we realize how well Israel was doing with going to the
Right.
Gentiles. They
Well,
sucked.
I I can't say who I work for, okay?
Yeah.
But there's been enough in the industry that I work for. There's a lot of health problems. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
wow. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, what if I found out and really understood? A lot of human decision comes into this, so it's not. But if I knew that what I was doing was actually killing people, I would have to really evaluate
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I'm doing. You know what I'm saying?
And then what? That's a great point, because now go back and think about what, like, how Jesus walks in to not say you're wrong to that religious crowd,
Mm-mm.
but to literally say you have absolutely 100% missed it.
Yes.
You've missed the kingdom. And it's like, I think I just now look at it so much differently, but I think Jesus walks in displaying the true heart of the kingdom.
Right.
And this display right here of healing a blind man, this display
Mm-hmm.
is what gets him and the blind man in trouble. And it's like we look back at it and we're like, we have a hard time seeing
Right.
what the problem is.
Right.
But I think in going back to what we have to always check what we're protecting.
Mm-hmm.
We have to check what because we'll die for what we protect at times.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do things for what we're protecting that we won't do for anything else.
Mm.
And sometimes what we're trying to protect is not doesn't need our help, or it needs to die. And in this case, I think that's where the
Mm.
ladder of the scripture of chapter 9 kind of comes into what Jesus is basically getting at. He's like, man, you guys have missed it altogether.
Think about things in our lives. Okay, so God is interacting these guys. Okay, he loves God loves them. Okay,
Absolutely.
he loves them. He wants them to come to the truth. He wants them to come into the kingdom. Right. Jesus is walking into the kingdom. He's bringing it in the kingdom, and anything that doesn't fit the kingdom, Jesus just goes, "I can't deal with that. I'm
Yep.
not going to deal with that, and I'm not going your way because it doesn't fit the kingdom." Right? But God wants them in the kingdom, so He's bringing them these things, these opportunities to go ding, 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 ding.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and they can't do it. Okay, because there's too much to lose. Right? So what if God brings things into our life like this and to destroy the things that are dragging us away from the kingdom. Oh God, that's terrible.
You said it. You
Oh
said
my
it.
God. And we
Came
and
out,
we and we
came out of your mouth.
and we resist it. We just resist it because it's so painful and it costs us so much. And we're
Because
just
what are
like,
we protecting?
it,
And you think about like
God,
that, this is what we're protecting right here.
yes,
This.
yes,
The sum of
this
all
hunk of
of
meat
this.
flesh thing we're
Absolutely.
walking around in.
That's why it doesn't matter where we see this thread show up with Jesus, which is everywhere. We have to always be quick to put ourselves in the place of the people that we're pointing the finger at, because it goes back to King Saul. It goes all the way back to the very first king
Mm,
that is representing Israel. And the dude started well, but we know how this theme runs through the
yep,
kings.
yep,
We've God, how long have we spent there? But you go back and you look at what brings him to the point of losing the anointing of dude still masquerading around as the king for years after the anointing is taken off of him.
yep, yep.
And the other man that's coming in, the little shepherd boy, he's the one glowing in the glory. And here this dude is, it's like that's what I see happening with this story. It's just this, it's this, not even an overthrow of power, because
Mm,
Jesus ain't here to, he's not
no,
overthrowing anything.
no.
He's bringing the real thing in, and it's pissing people off.
Eh,
It's challenging, like you said. It's like, ugh, am I really doing that?
He
Am I really?
he strips them. They're standing naked in the public. Okay, they've got nothing. They got nothing to cover themselves with, truth wise, and they are exposed. And what do you do when you're? I mean, if you were in the middle of a crowd and somebody all of a sudden just jerked your pants down to the ground and you're not wearing underwear, I mean, you never saw two faster hands in your life, right?
Yeah,
Trying to grab your pants back up. So these guys are, it's the same emotion, right? So what is it? And, we talk about our leaders, we talk about people that are running the organizations and stuff. So if they if they realize that they're putting their effort in the wrong place, what is it going to take for them to change direction? Admit guilt, expose themselves as uh, as flawed, right? Their leadership as misdirected. Ugh.
And when do you ever hear that in today's government
And
of anything?
how are the people going to react? We don't know. You may lose half of them. You may lose all of them. But but you're not but you're not walking in the kingdom.
That's right.
Ugh.
That's right. And then that goes back to the man, the wrestle is, am I in or am I out? And to have the kingdom not as an eternal heaven or an eternal hell, but to have the kingdom as a present reality, as Jesus usually taught it that way.
Yeah.
And this again is showing the people, because there's a crowd here. There's a crowd that has seen this going on, and like the denying, is this God or not, dude? Like the only people really denying it are the ones trying to protect their system.
Yep.
Nobody else is. I mean, the parents are trying to protect their safety.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they say, I don't know, he's of age, go jerk a knot in his tail. We don't want to be kicked out of the synagogue.
Yeah. Yeah. We'd much rather give up our son than
Yeah, yeah.
get kicked out of the community. What? I can't believe that. That's the thought. But these guys, everybody's trying to CYA, right? Everybody's trying to to salvage their own kingdom, their own
That's right.
their
That's right.
their own backyard. They're trying to, well, if I do this, it's going to cost me this. If I do this, it's going to cost me this. And the division among the Pharisees, I would be curious to know where the division was. Was the division
And what was the
in
other
the
side? Yeah,
junior
yeah,
people versus the senior people? Because the junior people had less to lose than the senior people.
yeah.
I don't
That's a
know.
good
I'm just
thought.
speculating. I'm just,
That's a good thought.
it may be wrong, it may be right. I don't know. But when you see these conflicts, especially like, in organizations, who are the people that want to see the change or are willing to make painful decisions, right? Are the people who have the least to lose.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? But the people who have the most to lose, they're more rigid, right? So,
yeah,
whew, that's big, isn't it?
yeah,
So,
man.
so they put him out. Jesus hears that they put him out, and he goes and finds him. So I think this is interesting. Jesus exits after the spitting of the mud, spitting, making the mud, and putting on his eyes and giving me instructions. Jesus goes la 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 and runs off, right? And leaves this guy to do or not do, and to go into the belly of the beast alone. I think that is one of the biggest truths out of this is that Jesus. People say, "Well, Jesus, Jesus is with me." Yeah, maybe. I'm not saying that the presence of God is going out of a believer. I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
saying
I
that.
see what
But
you're
I'm just saying that sometimes God may make it feel like you're all by yourself.
saying. Yeah, I think we've been in that position
Yes.
over the years. We know what that's like,
Yeah.
and in that is always a turning point is coming
Mm-hmm.
because you're like you're headed you're headed down a path of that seems dark, lonely,
Mm-hmm.
and there's always in the hope of knowing he's not done with you
Mm-mm.
that there's gonna come a turning point to where we have the choice to go right or left
Mm-hmm.
and turn. And man, I think that's a theological debate brewing, but I also think like what you're saying, I see it with I mean, look how many times Jesus leaves his disciples
Mm-hmm.
alone, leaves them to their own wrestle.
Right.
Like you got to learn to trust like I'm trusting
Right.
as Jesus is um, preparing.
Well, Jesus experienced this one time for sure. Okay, when he was on the cross, Psalms
Yeah,
22 lays this out clearly. He God was nowhere to be found from his point of view because he became the thing that God was trying to destroy, and at that moment he lost sight. Not that God was not
yeah,
there; he lost sight of God, right? And but Jesus in Psalms 22 it says, "But I know." In other words, there was truth that he hung on to that brought him through that whole ordeal of drinking the cup of wrath, right? So he
yeah,
held on to the same situation, much lesser pressure, obviously.
yeah, yeah.
But this guy just holds on to the truth. Look, I don't know what you're talking about. All I know is this. This is the truth. I was blind and now I see. Right? There's going to come time, and there have been times in my life. I'm sure you had times in your life when like you said, you feel like you're walking by yourself, but you're holding on to the truth, and the
That's
truth
right.
brings you through it. Right? And so you have to hold
100%.
on to the truth, even if you're being attacked and bombarded on every side. Hold on to the
Well,
truth.
isn't that again, not to get off base, but I mean, just to explain to someone that might be listening, like, what does it mean to hold on to truth? Well, it means to walk the faith path. It means to walk the path that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob walked.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that? God gave them a promise, and they held on to that promise, and they moved with that promise,
Right.
even in their freaking screw ups,
Right.
even in their, and I think like nothing's changed. I mean, God's the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that means that that path, that journey's the same.
Mm-hmm.
And here it's like this dude's got a word, he's got an experience, and Jesus is gonna let him sit in that experience on his own and
Mm-hmm.
try to use that experience, that word, that truth, the faith, in a way that he can see, man, if if I can continue to hold on to this one thing I know,
Mm-hmm.
and then that like, man, that's the journey of faith. It's like I don't know, maybe you could say he'll never leave us nor forsake us. That is a hope and a promise, but
Well, it is
the truth
true.
won't never leave us nor forsake us.
It
Yeah,
is true. You will never leave us nor forsake us. But it doesn't. But it doesn't mean that you won't ever feel like He's not there.
that's right. Yep, going back to the cross. Yep, that's right.
You will feel like He's not there, but yeah, He's never left. But yeah, you will feel like it. And I will give you a practical example of this, and that is, here's the truth. Okay, disciple making is the only way to impact the world. That's it. That is the truth. All right. That is rooted deeply in what Jesus did and what Paul did, what Paul said, what Jesus said. That is it. That is the only way to get this done. I've held on to that truth through similar bombardment that this blind man took. Similar. I won't say exactly, but similar. And where people have discounted, tried to get me off track, tried to convince me that, yeah, but it's not quite, that's not the only way. There's other ways. No, no. If you think there's other ways to impact the world other than making disciples of all nations, you're being lied to, because
Yeah,
you will put your efforts into that and they will not yield the fruit that you think they will yield.
that's
I've
right.
seen this repeated over and over again, watching people. There's people I know that have put all their eggs in that preaching basket. I'm sorry. I'm not saying preaching's
Doesn't end
worthless.
well.
I'm not saying
Yeah,
preaching's
yeah,
worthless. I'm not saying it doesn't do good. It does. I'm not saying it's not necessary, because it is. But if you think that preaching alone is going to impact the world, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not going to happen.
yeah.
So,
That if that seed dies alone, right? It goes back to the, like, man, we can kick the book of John around all day, man, and pull truth out of it,
mm-hmm,
but you know, just going to John 15 and thinking about the abiding text, and what Jesus is saying is like, there's a reproduction that is expected with fruit.
mm-hmm,
There's a reproduction that is expected, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd even go as far to say, dude, the disciple making process begins in creation.
mm-hmm,
I mean, I would just say we can pull on that thread all the way through and see the importance of the reproduction of God in Genesis 1
mm-hmm.
by humanity
Yep.
physically, the act of reproducing. But even beyond that, I think, again, I'm with you, man, and I think you hold to that. Like we've said it how many times? Thousands of times.
Mm-hmm.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Well, it's just like the
It
blind
doesn't matter.
man. You're
One,
exactly like the
that's
blind
right.
man. You see, and people are trying to convince you you don't,
Yep.
which is the most moronic thing you could ever say to a guy who was blind and now can see. Is, are you sure you can really see? Are you sure that's what happened? Are you sure? Are you stupid? Are you dumb? What what are you talking about? Well, the person who told you, maybe they weren't really of God. And look, I don't know. This one thing I know. I was blind and now I see. And now Jesus finds the guy and says, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" And the Son of Man is the Messiah. Okay, the guy understood Son of Man. He understood the phrase. And he goes, and I love 36. He goes, "Who is he that I may believe in him?" He's looking straight at him,
Looking, seeing.
square
Yeah,
at
yeah,
him,
yeah.
and goes, "Oh, you know who he is? Please, may I inquire that you relay this information, thus I may go and worship." He's like, I don't know who is it. And what's so funny is he knew who healed him, but he did not
Yeah.
see him. Now, boy, you can be a believer and never see Jesus. Gee,
Mm.
gee
That
whiz.
goes back to that reminds me of the Mark text of where this is possibly a similar, I don't know, there's debate about this, but where the guy, not this one, it's not the connection with this one, but it's where the guy, was it like Mark 6, 7, or 8, where the guy, Jesus had to touch him twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time it says he sees men, but he
Yeah.
sees them as the trees. And
Trees
then
walking around.
it, it, it again, it goes back to the I don't, I mean, would this encounter have ever happened any other way? Would this encounter with John 9, 33, 34,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 35, 36, where we're at right now,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would this encounter have happened any other way other than than Jesus walking away, the man having to own up to what really happened? I mean, is there any other way it could have played out?
Well,
I don't think so.
it could have played out differently, but it could not play out for the purposes that God had for Jesus, for this man,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
for the
yeah,
gospel's sake. Um, it kind of goes back to what you were saying, the second touch. You're talking about where he saw trees walking, then he touches them again, then he can see clearly. It's
yeah,
similar to that. It's almost like a second touch because he sees, but he doesn't see, right?
yeah.
So Jesus has to kind of touch him again. And then he goes and he says, "You have seen him, and he is the one who is talking with you." He goes, "Duh." Duh, buddy. Right here. And then he goes, "Lord, I believe." And he worship him. And here's the great one of the great truths out of this whole thing is Jesus has to take you through the briar patch so you can really see him for who he is. And if you hold on to the truth, what you see, if you really hold on to it, at the end, you'll understand Jesus on another level. You knew him, you knew of him, you could tell facts about him, but you really didn't see him. But then after you come through that whole mess and your life is completely destroyed, this guy's life's over. He's out of the community, dude. The worst thing that ever could have happened to him, and that is he's out of his community. But he sees Jesus. What a trade-off. It's crazy, isn't it? And then I love this part too. I love the whole thing, but um, then he said, and after he's worshiping, then Jesus gives him a second truth, right? The first truth was, we must work the works of him who sent me while it's day, night's coming when no one can work. Then he gives him this one. For judgment I came into this world that those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind. So when this guy goes in, he's the one that sees. But because he sees, now the other people that are around him go blind. They can't see. It's like running into a blind person and asking them to describe a picture on a page, and you say, "Oh, I know what the problem is. You just don't have enough light." So you shine more light on the picture. Not going to help. The guy's blind. Oh, I know what it is. I don't have him oriented right. So you orient him right, right? And you go through all these stupid things that aren't going to help. You know what I'm saying? You're
Yeah.
blind.
They seem logical. They seem like they'll help.
Oh, I know. Why don't people? I've had this one conversation with one brother so many times. Every time he says it, I verbally pulverize him because he 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 asks the same question over and over and over and again. Why don't people see this? Why don't people understand this? Why don't people hear this? I don't know. Well, maybe if I say it better. Well, maybe if they have a different setting. Maybe no, they're blind. Doesn't mean they're not nice people. Doesn't mean that they're not a believer, because believers can be blind. It just means they don't see. Well, what has to happen? A flipping miracle. That's what's gotta happen. A flipping miracle's gotta happen. You gotta let
Yeah.
God do his bit, right? Because you can't do it, right? You can you the best thing you can do is be a lens that people look through
Yeah.
to see truth. Yeah. Anyway.
The one thing to note here, and I've just recently taught this, so it's still fresh on my brain. But Isaiah 40 through 54 ish,
Uh-huh.
those kind of that post exilic time frame of Isaiah's book,
Mm-hmm.
the servant pops up like, I don't know, 20, 30 times in those chapters, maybe more. And the reality of the servant is not necessarily that the servant is Jesus. It's not in those texts. The servant is Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's 42, Isaiah 42, 18 through 20, in case somebody's wanting to look that up. It literally, the Isaiah through God says, "You Israel, Jacob, are the blind, you're the deaf,
Mm.
you're the ones that can't see, you're the ones that can't hear, and guess who did that? God says, I did."
Mm.
And then through that we see Jesus show up to their blindness, their deafness, as the true servant,
Mm.
acting as the true servant for the true kingdom, and they remain blind,
Mm.
they remain deaf. And that's where you go back to the generation of blindness and deafness has to be destroyed. And I think 70 AD is a pivotal time in the history of biblical proportions. That's
Right.
just my understanding. But like looking at this, man, this is so the judgment, that like this is the fulfillment of the judgment in Isaiah. In because we know it's not all people. We know it's not the whole entirety of the Jewish nation that's
Right.
crying, "Crucify him, crucify." It's this religious crowd. It's these
Right.
people holding and protecting this thing that needs to die. That's not the real thing. That's pointing to them. And Jesus comes in and he's like, hey, you want to know what you should be doing? You should be opening the eyes of the blind. You should be healing the lepers. You should be taking care of the poor. You should be a light unto all nations. And guess what? They're not. They're none of those. And Jesus, as the true servant, as the true representative of the true nature of God, dude, he comes in like a wrecking ball, silent wrecking ball. You don't hear it coming in behind you.
Mm-mm.
It's slowly showing up, and then after it has run over one, two, three, 10, 1,000, you start looking back like, God, why? What have we missed? And again, that response by the Pharisees, they said, "Are we blind also?"
Yeah. So
And
yeah, they can't leave this guy alone. They kick him out, but they can't leave him
yeah,
alone.
because now this guy becomes their judgment.
Yeah.
Like this guy's healing, this work of Jesus, and now these words and this it becomes the judgment that they are gonna be under until they have their eyes open.
It's like a splinter in their mind. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like okay, this guy has been healed, but yet it's wrong. How is and they're fighting with themselves. How is it wrong? And then they go, well, I can't admit this because of this and that, and we finally just got to get rid of this guy. But then they get rid of the guy, and then they can't leave him alone. They got to go. They got to hang out around where he is. And so Jesus comes up and interacts with this guy, gives him truth, and they hear what Jesus says because this has to be right outside. This still has to be in the area where Jesus initially encounters him, right? Because
yeah,
all this, where the guy was sitting, where Jesus was coming off the Temple Mount, where where the lawyers and the Pharisees hung out, was right in that central area. So when they kicked him out, um, he was right there, and Jesus is like, "Hey, I came to open the eyes of the blind, and then those that think they see, they become blind." And then the Pharisees hear it, and they get pierced by it, right? They get the little sting, and they go, "Well, we're not blind too, are we?" They're trying to justify themselves. And Jesus said, this is a great line: "If you were blind, you would have no sin." So the whole thing that they were bringing up was about sin. So now Jesus brings the truth, not what he brings the truth of sin. If you would say you're blind, you would have no sin. But since you say we see, your sin remains. The thing that you are calling me, the thing that you are calling them, is now stuck on you because you think you see. Because you can't humble yourself to say, we're wrong so that we can see. So the longer you hang on, how many times have we seen this where people just go, I don't understand what you're saying. And it's like, well, you're going to have to let go. You're going to have to let go of what you're hanging on to in order to see it.
yeah,
That's why the two groups that give us the most problem about disciple making are pastors and missionaries. Why? They have the most to lose.
yeah,
Who has the least to lose? Somebody in bone crushing failure. Somebody who spent their life or spent a good portion of their life or efforts into building an organization or building an institution, and they've seen it crash down around them. That was my father. The institution was crashing around him. On the outside, it looked somewhat successful, okay? But he knew deep down it was it was failing. It was not accomplishing what he thought it should accomplish or what they said it should accomplish, and it just did
yeah,
not work. And he knew it didn't work, but he did not have any other options. He did not have any other truth. And he's saying this to a guy who definitely did not have the truth. He's saying this to me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I had nothing to say. But I mean, and I've seen this happen and repeated over and over and over again. And I've watched it devastate
Yeah.
pastors
Yeah.
because they're
And
not.
and
Yeah.
speaking from a pastor position in just this last looking at finishing it up, but speaking from a pastor's point of view, it's like, can you still pastor and go after the world to make disciples of all nations? The answer is yes. It's not impossible. I think I'm a example of that. There's not a lot, but I think I'm an example of that. And one thing I've learned is, dude, if you're squeezing this thing tight and you're holding on to this thing for dear life because it's what makes you, it's what breaks you, it's who you are, then it's going to break you and it's going to destroy you. But if you realize, and I think I go back to Herb Hodges, chapter 8 of Tally Ho, not my favorite, probably my least favorite to teach of all of those. You know that. I've said that over and over again. But I think I'm starting to go back and settle into what he was saying.
Mm.
Not that I fully am on board with, but I think I understand now a little better of why I'm still there. And that's just been over the last couple of years that that's changed.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want out? Almost every day.
Mm.
I mean, I want out of the wrestle of the system.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, are you really gonna are you really gonna devote your time once you get out? You're gonna
Mm-hmm.
be like you're gonna be free. You're gonna be free from the system. Are you really gonna go and make disciples, or are you? And I don't. I wrestle with that still, but
Mm.
I think it's hard when thank God Woodlawn fired me. Thank God
Mm-hmm.
Jason White had Tallyho the Fox in my lap a year and a half before that happened, because dude, I'd have still been going after it
Yeah.
hard. And in that, that was how my eyes were opened, is in a firing, in a
Yeah.
realization that the system is flawed.
Well, I'm gonna ask you this question. I mean, I've had a little bit of experience in a fellowship, okay, or
Yeah.
trying to lead a fellowship. I've never been a full blown traditional pastor type, but even in that little fellowship, I could feel the dragging. It's almost like feeling like something's hooked to you, trying to drag you into a hole, and it's like this constant gravitational pull into pay attention. Like it's almost like the organization is pay attention to me, help me. I need to survive. I need, and it's like a constant drag. And if
Yeah.
you're not careful, you can get sucked into. It's almost like a black hole of where
Yeah.
you can't. If you get too deep into it, there's no escape velocity out of it.
Yeah.
Do you
and
empathize?
and they need
I see
you.
you
You
shaking
feel
your head.
important.
You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like you feel important in that they need you, and you. I think there's just got to be. And I'm not God. I would never encourage anybody to stay in something that God's asking you to get out of.
Right.
But do you know how long I've wrestled with
Yeah.
this full time thing, man? And for me to still be in it is a miracle. The miracle is not how have you survived. The miracle is, why are you still in it? Why, and again, I don't have answers for that, but I do. I was going to throw this out too, because again, another kind of a Remez reference here in Isaiah 5:21. I thought this was interesting. It says, of course, in the beginning of the book, it says, "Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight."
Mm.
And again, this is going to be a judgmental. This is going to be the indictment of Israel, for especially in the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Which this is what we're talking about. It's like it goes back to, I think the way that you win, no matter if you're in your organization, the way you win, whether you've got 5 kids, 2 kids, no kids, the way you win, whether you're married, not married, and when I say win, I'm not, it goes back to how are you seeing yourself based on what you're learning about Jesus and the scriptures, and the prudent, the gravitation to boast of something we're doing that we might not really even be doing or doing as well as we think, being wise in our own eyes, and then the last part of that, being prudent in their own sight. And I again, man, I've just slowly, after years of this wrestle with pride, I'm finally starting to realize how much of an arrogant asshole I've been for years. And I doubt many people have listened this long to the podcast to hear me say that. But you know, maybe the person that's listening and realizing, God, I'm glad he finally admitted it.
It's like I've been
But
seeing this joke coming across every once in a while. It says they're going to say two things about me when I die. Some people are going to say he was an asshole. Other people are going to go, "Yep."
yeah, 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 yeah. That old guy that says it and then sits. Yeah, yeah. I've seen him. I've seen him. He says some pretty funny stuff, man. Uh,
I'm
but
sorry, I got you off.
again, I think that's a. No, no. I mean, we got to wrap it up. But I think it's like, again, Jesus is dealing with pride and arrogance,
Right,
and he's dealing with the system that is killing people, that is destroying people.
right,
And Jesus is walking in with the system that God has always wanted to establish, which is to be a blessing to all nations. And if your system is not allowing you to see the heartbeat of outward movement of people outside of your little holy huddle, you better get the hell out of that thing, because it's going to crush you. It's going to keep you blind. It's going to keep you prideful, not humble.
right.
And we see that, and I'm, like I said, I could go right back to that kind of mentality today.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've learned enough, got enough butt whoopings from the Lord, from other things over the years, to realize that this is a place of privilege, a place
Yeah.
of opportunity. Um, and I think that's, yeah, man.
Well, we'll wrap it up with this. Just thinking about this whole thing. There's four characters in here that we can interchange at any moment. We can be any of these. We can be Jesus that initiates it. We can be the blind that wake up. We can be those that are taught through something like this, the disciples, or we can be those that wrestle with the truth, which is exactly what the Pharisees were doing. Some believed, some didn't, some were this way. We can be that group. So we got, and don't think you can't be any of that. Be careful,
Yeah,
because the very first time you think, well, I would never do that, you'll be the first one out the gate doing it. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
good study though. Good. I mean,
yeah, man.
we've tortured this text to the point
We've
where,
gone way over an hour.
yeah, yeah. Not really. We're right at it.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right.
Miracle.
Yeah.
Miracle of miracles.
Well, I'll say goodbye, and that way we'll be under an hour.
There you go.